Hey there! Today we're going to start a KSP career playthrough, which is going to integrate some of the mods we've looked at in my KSP Easy Mods series, as well as some basic tips and tricks to help you out as you progress through your own playthroughs. This first episode is going to be your standard getting started type video, where I'll introduce the KSC, talk a bit about changes in version 1.1, and we'll do some initial contract and science gathering to get our funds up and start unlocking the tech tree. We're also going to do something which is a bit less common in KSP playthroughs, and that's to try to unlock the atmospheric flight parts of the tech tree before we advance rocketry too far. The idea here is that there's a lot of interesting sights on Kerbin, which most players never get to see because they feel the call of the other planets too soon in their career. Well, we're going to see those sights and show you what a lot of people have been missing. If you have any questions or suggestions for the playthrough, go ahead and drop them in the comment section below and I'll see what I can do about addressing them. Alright, I think it's time to get started, so let's do a new game. Alright, so we're going to start new, and we're going to make sure it's a career. Let's just call it Let's Play. And select a flag. Now I have a custom flag I use, there you go. Alright, ready to go. Alright, so welcome to the Space Center. It's Gene Kerman. So you guys have probably seen these little messages before. If not, I'll let you through them on your own. The number of changes that you can see here from version 1.0. Obviously the one that jumps right out at you is the building icons here at the left. But otherwise you can also notice that the toolbar here and the back button have switched locations. Toolbar used to be at the top, horizontally at the top. Also, the time accelerator warp to next morning moved from the bottom center to its current position on top right. Of course, a lot of the Unity 5 changes that came with version 1.1 were performance related. You will also notice the fonts and icons are going to be slightly different. Menus are going to be a little bit different visually. I don't think there was a lot of major functional changes in version 1.1. It was mostly around the Unity 5 upgrade. So as it relates to the KSC here, again, not a lot of changes. The buttons basically just mimic what you could do with your mouse before. So if you left click with your mouse, it'll be the same as left clicking on the admin building, and right clicking will give you the upgrade, the same as when you right clicked on the building. Again, I don't think there's any changes to the upgrade components. So with the administration building at level 1, you can only have one max strategy active. When you upgrade, if you were to upgrade, you could go to max strategies 3 and a commitment of 60%. So I generally don't start with any of those initially. I want to maximize my funds and my science and reputation early on, but we will select a couple strategies later. Astronaut Complex. Again, you start with 5 Kerbals, and you can only disembark, you can only do an EVA on Kerbin. You can't do an EVA in space or on any other planets until you upgrade. So when you upgrade, you can get 12 Kerbal maximum, as well as the ability to EVA anywhere, and you can also EVA to place flags. The flagpole simply lets you change your flag, which we selected earlier. Launchpad, again, it starts with a vessel size restriction and a vessel weight restriction. Upgrade improves those significantly. You're going to have a difficult time doing any launches far away from Kerbin until you have an upgrade. I think it's possible if you're very efficient with your orbital maneuver and your ascent, but generally speaking, we'll upgrade this fairly early in the game. Mission control, maximum contracts you can have initially is 2. The upgrade will get you to 7, and the tracking station upgrade, in addition to the mission control upgrade, will get you flight planning. And what flight planning is basically the ability to add maneuver nodes. So without these 2 upgrades, both the tracking station and mission control, you won't be able to create maneuver nodes. For the R&D facility, you do have an initial limit on the science level that you can research to, and when you upgrade that, not only do you get to go deeper into the tech tree, but it also allows the ability for you to do surface samples on EVA, assuming that the Astronaut Complex has been upgraded as well. And an important one here, a subtle one that a lot of people don't really realize until they try to use it, is resource transfers. So you cannot move resources from one tank to another tank on the same vessel until you have upgraded the research facility. For the runway, it's the exact same as the launch pad with the vehicle weight restrictions, and an upgrade moves those weight restrictions up significantly. Spaceplane Hanger, again, same as the VAB. You have a max part supported at 30, and an upgrade takes you not only to max parts of 255, but allows you to start using action groups. For the tracking station, you can currently see your orbits of Kerbal on the map in map mode. When you go to upgrade, that gets you patched conics. Now what patched conics is basically the ability to project your trajectory and your orbital paths into other spheres of influence. So if you were to try right now to do a Mooner mission and you didn't have the tracking station upgraded to at least level 2, you would have to eyeball that. You would not see the intercept in map mode. You'd not see your trajectory adjust for the Mooner gravitational pull, and you wouldn't see what your Mooner insertion or your Mooner orbit looked like. So again, this is another one of these ones that's very important to upgrade early to make your life a little bit less difficult. And last but not least, we have the VAB, and again, just like the Spaceplane Hanger, max parts 30, an upgrade will get you to 255 and open up the basic action groups for you. So that was the quick introduction to the Kerbal Space Center. Again, most of you guys probably know all that stuff already, but I did want to run through it quick for those of you who might be joining KSP and this channel for the first time. So what we're going to do in this episode, guys, is start off with a series of quick little missions, quick launches. We'll just stay here very close to the Kerbal Space Center, and we'll build up a little bit of science and a little bit of funds to advance our game and unlock some of the tech tree. So before we get started, though, let's go to the Mission Control Center. And what we want to do, as I said earlier, we're limited to the 2 active contracts, and so it's pretty obvious here there's 2 good ones to start with to accept these contracts. Now what happens is if you don't accept these world first contracts, these are the first ones you'll see, and you'll continue to see more of these world first record contracts throughout your game. If you don't select these, you do get some recognition as you go, like as you set land speed records, distance from the KSC records, altitude records. You will get credit for those, and they will be automatic. They're not all here in the contracts list, but if you don't select the ones that are here in the contract list, you're going to miss out on these rewards. You're not going to get these funds and these science points. So I would encourage you to select the world first contracts when they're available and when you're ready to do them. Alright, so we've got 2 set now active. We want to gather some science and launch our first vessel. So that's perfect for mission control. Now let's get started in the VAB. And Werner von Kerman has given us his little intro. You'll notice a couple extra icons here in your toolbar at the bottom. Those are associated with some mods we have installed. So this one is Kerbal Engineering Redux, and this one is StageRecovery. We won't need to deal with those probably in this episode at all, but they're installed, so that's why you're seeing those. We have a fairly limited set of parts to work with here initially, because of course we haven't unlocked much of the tech tree yet. You will notice a couple extra parts here, again associated with Kerbal Engineering System, or sorry, Kerbal Engineering Redux, And again, we don't need those parts initially, but they are showing up there. Lastly, we have an extra tab here, EVA items, and that is because we have the mods installed, Kerbal inventory system and Kerbal attachment system. So we haven't unlocked any parts for those yet, but that's where the extra tab is coming from. So let's get at it. Let's build ourselves our first rocket to launch. And initially we are not going to want to go far. In fact, we're just going to want to go straight up and straight back down. Short flight, so let's minimize the fuel here and save some cost. We're also going to want, of course, a parachute to make sure we don't have a fiery landing. And then we can use a couple mystery goo containers, and hitting X on your keyboard will activate symmetry. So two-way, hit it again, three-way, etc. You can continue to hit X and cycle through those symmetry values. The C key right beside that one is going to toggle your angle snap. So down here, if you click C, you can turn it off and on between snap to fixed angles, or just be able to place anywhere when you're attaching something radially. So I think all we have to do is fix our staging, and we're going to be ready to go. Alright, so here we are on the launch pad, and before we hurtle ourselves into the air, there are some science experiments we can do here on the launch pad first. So right click on our command pod and let's get a crew report from the launch pad. Let's keep that experiment. We can also do a mystery goo observation here on the launch pad. Perfect, 3 more science, we'll keep that. Now we said earlier that you have to unlock EVA, and of course the exception to that is while we're here on Kerbal. So we can actually EVA Jeb right now, and because he's hanging onto the side of the vessel as opposed to having his feet on the ground, when we do an EVA report, it actually reports he's flying over Kerbal shores. So basically what that means is we're going to be able to get 2 EVAs from this location. So that's great, so let's keep that. And we're also going to want to take the data out of the command pod, and that data is the crew report, and store it back in. And what that lets us do is take another crew report after we launch and we're airborne. Otherwise you wouldn't be able to do 2 crew reports in the same single command pod. So I think we're ready to reboard, and as soon as we launch we'll do a couple more experiments, and then we'll deploy our parachute and make sure we come back nice and safe to the launch pad here. So SAS activated to keep us flying nice and straight, and launch. So again, let's do another crew report while we're flying. That's great. Do the other mystery goo while we're airborne, not forgetting to deploy our parachute, and that mystery goo is 7 science, so we'll keep that as well. And what I want to do is rock this a little bit so that when we land, we'll land on our side. Perfect. And that'll just make it easier for me to EVA out onto the ground. Get another EVA report for another 2.4 science. Keep that all set to go. Climb back on board. And then we get ready to recover this vessel. So a nice science return for that very first very quick mission, 28 science. So we'll keep that. We've recovered the vessel, so there's a lot of funds coming back to us from recovered parts. And of course the first mission that Jeb went on has given him an experience point. So all in all, a great start. So with 32 science points already, we can go into the R&D facility and unlock some parts. So let's do that now before we embark on another mission. All right, so we have two nodes available: basic rocketry, which will give us another SRB, a liquid fuel tank, and our first liquid fuel engine. And we have Engineering 101, which gives us some of the Kerbal attachment system, Kerbal inventory system parts, as well as a new science experiment, the 9001 Science Junior, a Communitron, and a stack decoupler. So these are each only 5 science to research, so we're going to get both of those. And with 22 science left, we still have enough to unlock the next level. So general rocketry here gets us 3 more rocketry parts. Stability gets us a nose cone, a winglet, and a radial decoupler. Survivability gets us a heat shield, some radiators, some more parachutes, which are probably going to be very important, a landing strut, and a service bay. So given that we can only select one of these at this point, I am going to go with the survivability to get us those parachutes. Alright, so that's about all we can do for now. Let's go do another launch and get us some more science. Alright, back to the VAB. Now, we'll want to add the Science Junior materials bay to our rocket. And of course, what that will let us do, and maybe what we should do, is simply launch there and get that science from the materials bay right off the bat. Observe material bay. 7.5 science. We'll keep that. We'll recover our vessel. Never had to go anywhere, do anything. 7.5 science. Perfect. Go back into the VAB. Alright, so this time we're actually going to launch and get our materials bay airborne. And as a result, we're probably going to want some better parachutes. So let's get a couple new parachutes here, because we have the additional weight of the materials bay, as well as we're going to want to give a little more fuel here. Make sure that we can get ourselves to a new area that we're going to target, which is going to be just north of the Kerbal Space Center, and we're going to try to land in Kerbal Shores to get ourselves some more science. So let's give that a whirl. And first things first, let's correct the potentially embarrassing staging error that I had there. We don't really want our parachutes deploying as soon as we lift off. So as I said, we want to go north onto Kerbal Shores. All of our science experiments so far have been here at the launch pad, which will give its own science, as will the areas around each of the buildings in the KSC. You can get specific science from each of those areas. But the KSC itself is surrounded by the Kerbal Shores biome. So if we can launch out here towards the water, north of the runway, we should be able to get a new set of science data from Kerbal Shores. So let's give that a go right now. So we're just going to make sure I get enough distance that we're right on the Kerbal Shores biome before I launch my parachute. And of course, we know we already have a crew report flying over Kerbal, so we probably can't get any more science from that. No. And we can, however, get the materials bay. So there's a nice science haul of 17.5 while flying at Kerbal, so we'll keep that. We also had a mystery goo already flying over Kerbal, so probably get less science running it again. Well, 1.6. We have two mystery goo containers anyway, so we'll keep that. Now we can't, at this point, EVA, of course. We'll have to wait until we land to get the EVA, to get the crew report, and to observe this other mystery goo container. So I'll just do a time acceleration here and get us to the ground a little bit quicker. Now, as you guys see, we came in actually very close to one of the monolith sites. This is the little object you can see right here. That is one of the 5 monoliths that can be found on Kerbin. Just an interesting little anomaly. But that's not where we're focused at the moment. So let's get our other mystery goo container. 3 signs for that. Beautiful. We want to get a crew report. Wonderful. And we can do an EVA. And get an EVA report. Yeah, so we already had one flying at Kerbin Shores. So we need to get Jeb down to the ground here. So there we go. A little bit of a tumble since we don't have any ladders researched at this point, but he'll be happy to know he can now give us another 2.4 science. So thanks for taking one for the team there, Jeb. All right, we're ready to recover. So 3.2 science, that is just for Jeb himself recovering. We still have the vehicle. So let's recover that vehicle, and another 23.8 science. So another good little haul that's probably worthy of another quick visit to the R&D facility. Stability is 18, general rocketry is 20. I think we should maybe. Now it's 45 to get the basic science, so we actually are just a couple science points short of being able to get the basic science, which will give us our first battery as well as another science experiment to accelerate our science gathering. So I think we'll just go ahead and get the stability, and that will allow us to run a couple more missions, get our science back up, and we'll probably get basic science as our next objective. So we need to get to 45 to unlock any of these at the next layer of the tree. And of course we still have general rocketry, which is only 20, but I don't want to burn those 20 science points right now to get us basically some engines that we're not ready to use anyway. So let's back out here. And let's have another look at our mission control to see what science is available. Or sorry, what contracts are available. Again, our world first records, a couple that we probably don't need to chase just yet at this point. These launch site ones are, of course, relatively easy to do because everything you do is at the launch site, so we could accept one of those. And the Mark 16 parachute, depending on the parameters here, 6 to 10,000, 160 to 240. It's probably fairly easy to do at this point as well, but let's not worry about that at this point. The parameters of the stack decoupler test are 5,000 to 13,000, 380 to 610. Again, not really that difficult. That's going to be a pretty standard launch profile, but let's just stick with the one we have here so far. That's the hammer, and continue to focus on some early science gains. Alright, so back to the VAB, And we're going to want to basically replicate that last mission we did, but this time we're going to want to go over the water. So instead of going north past the runway onto Kerbal shores, we're going to want to go sort of due east and splash down in the water. So probably the one change we can make to accommodate that is actually to use the hammer to satisfy our contract as well. So there you have test the hammer at the launch site. So using the hammer, probably don't need all of the fuel that's on there. Let's back it off a little bit. And I've messed up my symmetry on the mystery goo container, so let's fix that. Correct our staging. And we're ready to basically run the same mission over again, but to get more science out of the water biome. So here we go. All right. As we said, we're just gonna try to get over here and splash down straight east of the KSC. SAS on, and away we go. Plenty of fuel, as you can see. And up here in our notification windows, you can see we successfully completed that, as well as a number of other items that we didn't look at just yet. Now I will deploy our chutes at this point to give us lots of time to do our science experiments here, because we're now over the water. We should be able to get all of these. A new crew report, 3.5 science, we'll take that. A new mystery goo observation. Again, this is still flying at Kerbal. 0.4. Well, we have an extra one anyway, so we'll keep it. Probably we'll get the same thing from the materials bay, because we've already been flying at Kerbal before. So instead of keeping the 3.8, I'm going to reset that, and we'll get a much nicer haul from the materials bay if we wait until we splash down for that science report. And as well, we'll keep the extra mystery goo container, and the EVA will get another crew report and an EVA report once we splash down. So let's do a time acceleration, get ourselves into the water. Beautiful. Ever so graceful splashdown. Now we can observe the materials bay. There you go, 10. That's better than 3. We've got another mystery goo container there. Another 4. We'll keep that. Now we can't do a crew report because we already have one. But what we can do is get our vessel rotated a bit here so that we can EVA our good friend Jeb. Get an EVA report, keep that experiment, but more importantly, we'll take the current crew report out. We'll put those back in, go back on board, and get our last piece of science from this mission, which is another crew report from the water for 2 more science. So, all in all, a reasonable haul for, once again, a very quick little mission. Not too difficult, not too risky, and some more science. So let's see what we got. Beautiful, another 23 science earned. Now we can go back into the R&D center, and as we talked about, we now have all the options here that are 45 science to unlock. We have 53. So we have flight control, which is basically some more winglets and a reaction wheel. That reaction wheel is nice to have. Aviation, of course, as I mentioned in the introduction, is going to be our early focus. But first things first, I think we want to get ourselves the basic science, because that will actually give us another experiment to use, as well as a battery, which can be important and useful. So let's do that first. Okay guys, let's do another real quick mission. Over due west, again basically a repeat of the last mission, but we're going to want to go due west and get up here on this dark green landmass, which is going to be grasslands, Kerbal grasslands, and we'll run that set of experiments again for some more wonderful science. But before we do that, let's double check our missions again. So we've completed everything. We don't have anything active. The decoupler. Yeah, it's easy enough to do. I just don't want to distract. You'd have to build your vessel a little bit different to accommodate that, and I don't want to distract from our science gathering right now. So I'm going to pass on activating a contract right this second. And again, focus on our science. We are making slow but sure progress here in our funds. So let's continue that. Let's continue that trend. All right, now the only change I'll probably want to make here is give ourselves the rest of that fuel, because it's a little farther to the grasslands. As well as let's add our new science item. So we can probably actually get like 3 of these, because maybe even 4. So 1 right on the launch pad, 1 as soon as we take off, another one while we're airborne over grasslands, and then finally while we're landed at grasslands. So yeah, I think we can go with 4 and get a fair bit of science out of this. Alright, so once again we're ready to roll. Alright, so as we said, let's get temperature from the launch pad, 2.4 science. Beautiful. Let's launch. Let's get ourselves headed in the right direction. Do another log temperature. Kerbal shores, we'll keep that. We overcompensated there a little bit, but I think we're still going to have more than enough fuel to get us into the grassland. There we go. Little aerodynamics there just for fun. Alright, finally can do another temperature. Kerbal grasslands for 5.6. Beautiful. We can do a crew report. 3.5. Let's keep that. We can do a mystery goo. No. 0.01. Probably not worth saving that. So I'm just about ready to deploy the parachutes, somewhere around 2,500. So this is probably the farthest we've gone from the KSC, but once again, just a lovely little Sunday drive. Nothing too challenging yet at this point. So I'm just going to time accelerate. Might do is try to get the vessel to land on its side. That'll just make it a little bit easier. We won't have to do 2 recoveries of Jeb and the vessel separately. I'll just reboard them, and then we can recover both at once we EVA to do our grasslands EVA. Getting pretty close. Use the old trick of seeing your shadow. We have it. Perfect. Now we can get a nice science haul from the materials bay. 7.5 2.5, Kerbal grasslands, perfect. We can get a couple mystery goo observations. We'll take a 3 and a 3. We'll get Jeb to do an EVA report. And again, because he's not on the ground, it shows us flying, so we'll get 5.6 there. We'll keep that, and we'll take the crew report out. We'll store it back in. We will jump off and get our feet on the ground for our EVA report. 2.4, perfect. Now we'll climb back in. And we should now be able to get a crew report. And we're golden. So another 37.8 science. A nice haul for a very quick little jaunt. And again, it pushes us back up over 45, so we could, in theory, unlock another science level. So aviation is the one that we said we would focus on. Flight control would be good too, but we're gonna stay true to our strategy here of trying to unlock a lot of the aviation, so we can do some local Kerbal flight here early on. So let's research that, and we're ready to go. And that, guys, is probably a good place to stop our first episode. Nothing too outrageous happening so far, but I think you can see with only a few minutes of work, you can get a fair bit of science done and get enough of the tree unlocked to start to open up your options and flexibilities on what your missions are going to be. So in the next episode, we'll continue this path, and we'll definitely engage in some more contract work to start fleshing out our funds as well, so we can start upgrading our buildings and our facilities. All right. So thanks a lot for joining me today, guys, and we'll see you in the next episode. Take care.